Hey guys, welcome back to the third episode of the podcast. Our guest today is Derek Palmaville. He is a home inspector as well as a instructor of home inspection, if that's the right way to say it.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
I like to say home inspection educator.
There you go. Home inspection
works.
educator.
Yeah.
Right. He's also an author of this book right here, which I will let you speak on first and
Okay.
let everybody know what it is.
Okay. I'll give you a little bit of background. I've been a home inspector since 1994. I've done thousands of home inspections in my career in multiple states. I started teaching home inspection certification courses around the country in 2003. So I've actually taught at least one course in each of the lower 48 states and several courses up in Canada over the last 20 some odd years that I've been doing it. So I started High Tech about 4.5 years ago. The school I was teaching for, they were a national school and they've kind of shrunk quite a bit and they got bought and sold so many times that it really felt like the class situation was becoming kind of a diploma mill kind of thing. And my wife Becky and I, we really wanted to put together our own school so that we could put that personalized touch back into training, and that's how we started High Tech. Soon after we started High Tech, I wrote the book, and that book, it's not about home inspections. There's plenty of good textbooks out there in the world for teaching home inspections, all the technical. But split down the middle is a book that I wrote, but I put my 30 years of marketing experience of my home inspection businesses into that book.
Okay.
So everything. I mean, there's a lot of basics and fundamentals to marketing and sales techniques and stuff like that in there, but it's all catered to the home inspection business. And I've had students read the book cover to cover, and just this last year, a couple of students, they read the book cover to cover. They go out and do everything that's in that book, and they're having some amazing results.
Well, like with any business, our income comes from producing result or obtaining the client, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've said it in our earlier episodes, but when you take your real estate schooling, they don't teach you anything about like how do you actually get clients? How do you actually sell homes? I find that if you can successfully get clients and practice your trade all the time, then you won't drop out.
That's right.
And then you'll become really, really good over time.
Right.
And you know, my industry has about a 90-ish% dropout rate before your first license renewal.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, not that I know the numbers, maybe you do, but I've seen a lot of home inspectors on the hamster wheel.
Oh, yeah.
So what does that look like? Are they dropping out after the first renewal or something? Or
not everybody. Fortunately, High Tech is a small enough school to where we're not bringing in the masses and doing the diploma mill thing. You know, so the students that mostly come to us, these are guys that are dedicated, they're committed, they want to become a home inspector. So the vast majority of our students are actually going out there and making it work. But just like any other industry, especially licensed, industries, I mean, there's always that fallout. You know, some guys, some students will come, they'll take the class and they'll say, well, you know, I gave it a try for a year, I just didn't like the business. You know?
Sure.
And, you know, the reason we wrote the book was because, you know, I wanted to put those 30 years into one book. For example, the school that I used to teach for, we would spend about 6 or 8 hours on the very last day of class on here's how to market the business. And after 7, 8, or 10, or even 12 days in class, most guys are like, yeah, can I just go home? You know,
right.
And they have very little to take home with them. So that's why I wrote the book, you know, because other schools, it's like, well, here's how to do a home inspection. Here's all the technical. Here's how you study for the exam. Go get them, Tiger.
Right.
And that's it, you know. And like you said, I mean, there's no training there. So, which is why we wrote the book. You know, wanted to put my experience, my knowledge, you know, my years of sales training that I've received, you know, for the last 3 or 4 decades on all this stuff. And I hate to admit it, but when I was 19 years old, I was first introduced to sales. I sold Kirby vacuums door to door, and that was my introduction to sales. Oh, you know, so and I took a lot of what I learned there, put it to use in the home inspection industry, and here we are 30 years later. So,
well, there you go. I will say that I have sat through some home inspection courses as a spectator. I wasn't going there to get a license for it.
Yeah.
But it was definitely interesting sitting through the course. And even though I've been in real estate and I've probably sat through, I don't know, dozens and dozens of home inspections, it was definitely different to get it from the home inspector's viewpoint on the training, right?
Yeah.
Totally different. There were certain things that I didn't realize were a part of home inspecting, and I got to see them in the class and understand, okay. From the realtor's perspective, we kind of complain a little bit about home inspectors. I mean, we do and we don't, right? So like, it's like everybody. There's good doctors, bad realtors, good realtors.
Sure.
Home inspectors, no different, right?
Bad apples in every barrel.
What's funny is when we go do a home inspection, we usually end up sitting somewhere waiting for the home inspector to do a couple hour, walk through of the house.
Yeah.
For us, it's just a couple of hours where we do some more work and things like that.
Yeah.
Now, I took a little bit of a different approach, though. When I was learning my trade, I would just silently shadow behind the home inspector.
Smart.
Because I wanted to learn what I could about the homes from their viewpoint.
Yeah, yeah.
Plus, you have to learn how to read a home inspection report.
You do, yeah.
Which they don't cover in real estate school. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
And to be honest, the only way you get it covered is when you get your first home inspection scheduled.
Right, right.
And so with that, I can imagine you have stories, but are there pitfalls? Are there things that new inspectors kind of fall into or need to avoid? Or I don't know. Just
well, that's a loaded question. It really is.
Sure.
Because one of the things, and by the way, we're actively engaged in the home inspection business. So I still do home inspections every week.
If
I'm not teaching, I'm inspecting. And if I'm not doing either one of those, I'm not going and getting more students or more home inspections.
Right.
So yeah, it's something that we focus on real heavy in the course is the report writing. Because, what we tell our students is you can't write the report with all that technical verbiage.
Sure.
Because it becomes alarmist. And people can very easily get scared by looking at the report and seeing a whole bunch of words they don't understand. Because if they don't know what the word means, it sounds expensive, right?
Right.
And if it sounds expensive, well, maybe I should, the client then finds themselves rethinking the purchase of the property. And a home inspector's job is not to sell nor to bust up the deal.
Right.
So it is a lot of new home inspectors. A common thing that I see is they tend to get overly wordy and stuff. We all do that because, we talk about it in the book, the split down the middle title is right brain versus left brain concept. And home inspectors are extreme left brain people, The more information I give, the better, So I've seen home inspectors reports where there's 8 paragraphs, 3 pages and 9 photos of the concrete patio. And it's basically a dissertation on the joys of concrete. And the very last sentence in that 8th paragraph says, yeah, but there's nothing wrong with it. It appears serviceable, Those are the kind of pitfalls, that new home inspectors fall into. They get overly wordy because they're concerned about the liability aspect. And if I don't put everything in here that could possibly go wrong, then I'm going to get sued. So they tend to overcorrect and overcompensate that way. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I can speak on that one. That's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
I mean, I will also tell you too, when you're new and you're learning, I probably did it, so it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but we kind of want to show off that we know something.
Of course.
So
you want to demonstrate that expertise.
So we learn those scientific words.
Yeah.
And you could have said it in one word, right? But no, it is. So when I said we kind of bitch and complain about home inspectors, it's the wordy thing.
Yeah.
Right?
It is. Yeah.
They use words sometimes like urgent, which makes sense. But when the house is 30 years old and this urgent problem has been there for 30 years, how urgent are we to interpret this, right? So how important and how do you instruct on language, to be used either verbally or written? Because a lot of home inspectors will talk to the buyer after they're done with the physical inspection,
right.
And just kind of also do a little bit of a Q&A. Do you guys have any questions after I go over everything? Which I find really great. I love it when people do that.
Oh, yeah.
I've had home inspectors literally just go, okay, thank you, bye, you'll get my report. And then I have to interpret something that I don't do for a living.
You end up being the go-between and the translator.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also the scary part for me is if I interpret the home inspection information inaccurately, I've given the wrong info to my client.
Exactly.
I'm also worried about being sued, right? It's a very litigious society.
Sure
so
it is. Yeah.
We always want to disclose and things, but how do you guys instruct, or do you instruct on verbiage to be used?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I tell my students, Collier, is, okay, if I just give you the words to use in your report, I'm giving you a fish and you'll eat a meal. But if I teach you the concept behind it, I'm teaching you how to fish and you can eat for a lifetime.
There you go.
So what we teach in our report writing and communications throughout the course, our 12-day course, is Keep it short, simple, to the point. Don't use a lot of technical verbiage. Describe what you see, tell them what to do about it. That's the most important thing you can do. And then the last piece is, and this is the hardest one to teach, perspective. You know, and I'll go back to what you said. Okay, the home inspector will say this is urgent, but that urgent problem has been there for 30 years. How urgent can it be, right? So that's an improper perspective. Okay. Now, and that's not to say if we're talking about a rotted out deck or a balcony that's going to fall off the house tomorrow. Okay, yeah, that's urgent. Okay.
Sure.
But urgent's not a word that I use, even though that deck has been rotting for 20 years. Okay, yeah, it is kind of more urgent. So rather than trying to place too much or not enough emphasis on something, pick 3 key descriptors.
Okay.
Define them in your contract and verbally define them to your client.
Okay.
So that way the client can get the right perspective. So for example, we have 3 key descriptors in our home inspection report and in our contract that we specifically define. And I've been using this for the entire 32 years I've been in business. Okay. They're satisfactory, marginal, and poor.
Okay.
I don't say urgent. I don't say, do it now. I don't give it a timing or anything like that. It's satisfactory, marginal, and poor. And what I tell the client is satisfactory means that it's working today.
Okay.
The definition in the contract, it's serving its intended purpose, and it may show signs of normal wear and tear.
Okay.
Marginal means it's going to require repair or replacement anytime in the next 5 years.
Okay.
And then it'd be something like the water heater, for example. It's 12, 13 years old. They last 15, 20 years up here in the Northwest.
Sure.
So it's 15 years old. It's working just fine. Okay, it's marginal. Budget for it. It's a deferred cost item.
Okay.
Or maybe a roof that's 12 to 15 years old and it's showing some signs of wear and tear. Okay, budget for it. That's marginal. Poor is just broken, it doesn't work, and it needs to be fixed. And when you pick those 3 descriptors and you have them well defined in your contract, then you won't run into those problems with people misinterpreting. And the other side of your question is, I don't like the realtor to translate my report to the client. I want to talk to the client.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I prefer.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
I'm still going to have to answer some follow-up questions.
Sure you are. Yeah.
Because part of my job once the home inspector is done is I got to respond to the listing agent.
Right.
If I'm the buying agent, I got to respond with, well, basically our requests for what we saw, on the home inspection report.
Right.
And again, we don't try to nickel and dime either.
Right.
So if there's paint chips on a deck or something, we're not asking for that kind of repair.
Sure.
But if you've got rotting footers that are structurally important to the deck staying up, and there's dry rot or something like that, yeah, I feel like if you're selling a house, you should have a safe deck that comes with the house.
Sure.
And so we might ask for that to be repaired. And that's the other part that I know you have talked to me about before, but in of itself, the perspective is very important. But then I've read a lot of reports, and in some reports, you get people who tell you what the fix should be.
Okay.
And I think if I'm not mistaken, you also frown on that.
I do. Yeah.
Because as a realtor, what I'll do is I'll get, like if it's a concrete patio, I'm not getting a roofer. I'm going to get a guy who does concrete.
Right.
And I'm going to have them come out, take a look at it, give me an actual bid on the repair cost. So I have something tangible to show the sellers and the listing agent, like this is a legit concern.
Yeah.
But I've seen in some reports or even heard the stories that, they'll say, this doesn't look right. It violates a code. Get this to fix it.
Yeah.
And I mean, how do you instruct? Like, what does that look like?
It's a good question because if I understand you correctly, there's 2 parts to your question. And, one is, do you cite code? The other one is, do you document and recommend specific types of repairs?
Yeah.
So I've got 3 words for you. Standards of practice. So, we live in Washington State, and there are 38 states now across the United States that have licensing laws for home inspectors.
Oh, okay.
Every state that has...
Not all of them.
No, not all of them. No, and actually, all of them have been passed in the last 25 years.
Okay.
Every single one. When I first started in '94, there was 0 licensing for home inspectors. And talk about it being the Old West. It really was, I'm telling you. But those standards of practice specifically state in every state and in the national associations like ASHI and INTERNACHI for home inspectors, they all say the same thing. We are not required to, quote, repair estimates, cost, or site specific types of repairs.
Right.
And there's a very good reason for that because we're going to get it wrong.
Okay.
Because what we are And this is something we talk about in one of our videos on our YouTube channel. It's a video we have, contractors don't know home inspectors. It's to kind of help prepare the client for after the process when the contractor comes out and says, well, your home inspector's an idiot, And, kind of prepare them for that, to kind of calm it down, because then they start freaking out and the emotions start running high again. We're going to get it wrong because we're generalists, okay? So you need to think of your home inspector as like your general family physician. You go to him once a year, or her. You go to your family doctor once a year. You get a checkup. And that's so you don't have to go to 30 different specialists every year just to get one or two little things looked at, right?
Okay.
And when your family doctor sits down with you, Collier, and he says, Collier, I'm hearing something kind of weird in your heart. I'd like you to lay down on the table. We're going to cut you open and do some exploratory surgery.
Right. Yeah.
Would you trust your family doctor to do that?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, neither would I, right? Hopefully most of us will run kicking and screaming and say, thanks, but no thanks. And we'll go where? We'll go to a cardiologist.
Right.
So a good generalist, a good family physician, he's going to refer you to a cardiologist for a heart problem, a podiatrist for a foot problem.
Sure.
Right? And then that doctor will do more exploratory and invasive work and testing to really narrow it down, figure out what the problem is, and come up with a prognosis, right? So that's what a home inspector does. Our job should not be to recommend specific repairs or estimate repair costs.
Right.
Because most of us, not only are we not full-time contractors, some are, but most of us are not. Every state, we talked about the licensing laws, every state has a law that says home inspector can't do work for a fee on that house for at least 1 year after the inspection.
Oh, okay.
So we can't do the work. So you're better off getting the bid from the guy who will. Does that make sense?
Because I do know that there's a lot of people who have, I would say maybe they leave the trade of doing construction. Everything's got a shelf life.
Yeah, it does.
And back, breaking your back with a shovel is only going to last so long.
Oh yeah.
And so I do know that a lot of inspectors I've used in the past have been retired contractors. I like that because there is a 20 or 30 year base knowledge of career.
Oh yeah.
Before they went to a school to become a home inspector.
Yeah.
Now, there are home inspectors that have never done construction before, and they become a home inspector. They go through the same school.
Yeah.
So they might lack the 20 or so years of construction experience, but do you find a student type, if you will, from their background that's easier or more difficult to instruct?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Yeah. Because having taught now for 23 years, I've had a lot of experienced contractors take my class. In the past, I used to get nervous when that one guy would come up to me before class is starting, on the very first day, everybody's kind of finding their seat and everybody's uncomfortable, and he says, "Hi, I'm Bubba. And, I've been doing this 30 years. I could probably teach this class, That's the guy that makes me the most nervous, or used to, because, again, 20 years ago, I was kind of nervous about teaching, it's that whole imposter syndrome thing.
Yeah.
And what I've discovered is most of those guys, about halfway through class, towards the end of class, they'll come to me and say, you know what, I had no idea how much I didn't know. And I have learned so much in this class. Thank you. Now that I see the perspective, I know I can go out there and I can be an awesome home inspector. So it's tough in any situation because when you have a lot of guys like that in the class, they've been building homes for 25 years, they're all business owners and entrepreneurs. Imagine 25 type A personalities in the room, type A personalities, including the instructor. Who's in charge?
Right.
And it can get out of control, but most of the time it's all about building rapport and it's all about being respectful to one another in the classroom. So I haven't had any real major problems with that. But I will tell you this, because you said some guys get into this and they have no experience. I was an insurance agent.
Okay.
I'm blind in one eye and I have ADD. So I'm a half-blind ADD insurance agent. And I didn't know the difference between a hot and a neutral wire, and if I can succeed in this business, anybody can with the right training. And with the right knowledge and with the right application. If you have a technical aptitude and you have the ability to communicate, because you got to be able to communicate, not only to agents, but to your clients, then anybody can succeed in this business.
Well, that's a very well put way of answering the question. So,
I'm trying to get you some bonus points on your podcast here.
Don't alienate any student, right?
That's right.
No,
any more than I would alienate a client or an agent, right?
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing too, is one of the disclosure processes that we go through as an agent, right, is that we have to give, genuinely what we should do is we should give 3 recommendations.
Absolutely.
So in our state, which is Washington, the real estate agent doesn't hire you.
Right.
Technically and legally in the contracts, the home buyer is hiring the home inspector. Now, I don't know about anybody watching the podcast, but my experience is nobody buying a house has a clue that, like, they don't know a home inspector,
right?
Which I find hilarious because everybody I talk to knows a real estate agent, but they don't seem to know a home inspector or a handyman or anybody else like that. So, in an interestingly difficult position for me is I have my own opinion on good inspectors, bad inspectors, but I have to give these recommendations. We have our clients sign that we've disclosed our relationship with the inspector. I mean, it's a little overkill, but at the end of the day, the buyer is the one hiring them, even though I'm recommending them because buyers never seem to know who they are. And then the communication thing is huge. Like we've been talking about, people can be scared easily. If I'm buying a house for what I call normal couple or normal buying client, it just means they're like the average public. Okay. They're going to live in the house. They're going to raise a family in the house, not raise a family in the house. Whatever they're going to do, it's in the house. And at the end of the day, their emotions are really heightened during the process.
Yeah, they really are.
I've had people freak out because they couldn't get over like pink bathroom wallpaper, right? And I'm like, I'll give you a couple $100, buy some paint. I mean, it's changeable. We can alter this. But when it comes to the home inspection, I've had people want to ignore foundation problems.
The home inspector or the client?
No, the client. Like the home inspector shows a picture of them putting a pin inside of a crack on a foundation, right? And they recommend getting a foundation expert out there to look at the home, right? And there's a few companies that I would recommend for that as well. And so I've had buyers go, well, how old's the house? And I'm like, well, it was built in 1978. And they're like, well, how long's the crack been there? I don't know, but it's there now. And we should have it looked at. And they go, well, I mean, the house is still there. It's not a big deal, right? I mean, so it's really bizarre, but you never know what the client's emotions or how they're going to respond to the home inspection. And then I try to recommend to them, like, hey, I get that you don't think it's a problem, but I'm telling you that's a big problem, because it's structural. And there's also little things that I can pick up on when you learn how to read a report. Windows and doors being unplumbed, not being plumbed.
And then the frames and
then there's and then there's a small crack or two in the foundation somewhere. Like you put these little puzzle pieces together. And then maybe you kind of go a direction to figure out the course of action to figure out what the repair would be. So when you're inspecting a home, you're the one putting together these observations. Do you put some of these puzzle pieces together when you're talking to the home buyers?
Absolutely.
And how does that look? Like, I don't know, pull a scenario and show us what do you do? How do you put them together for people?
It's actually not as hard as it seems, and but it is one of the toughest things I have teaching the students, because when I'm doing a home inspection, I'm going through the house, and it's what I tell my students. Doing a home inspection is all about assembling the clues as you go. And structure is one of the things, is the very first thing that we teach in the class, because you're assessing the structure throughout the entire inspection. Your structural inspection starts the minute you pull up to the house and you take your first look at it from the street. It ends when you get in the truck and you drive away. So you're constantly adding these clues up. So when I see, like, exactly what you said, okay, there's a couple of doors and windows that are sticking and binding. There was a crack in the foundation. Then I go down on the crawl space and I see the crack goes all the way through the foundation wall. And we look for a few other clues. So what we do in our reports is we'll document each one of those deficiencies as a deficiency in and of itself. And then on the structure page, I'll always put a comment there that says, sticking and binding windows, doors rubbing in the frame, cracks in the crawl space appear to be structural movement. And then I'll make the recommendation of a foundation contractor, or in some really worst case scenarios, a structural engineer. So you do want to give your client that big picture outlook. You absolutely have to, because you're absolutely right. Sometimes, like the first time buyers, they can be really skittish. Well, that outlet's reverse polarity. Oh my gosh, we're going to die. No, you're not. It's a 5-minute fix. Yeah, but we have kids. But then you've got the folks who've bought 5 or 6 homes, and they go, yeah, I've seen cracks in the foundation, no big deal, and they got the blinders on.
Right, right.
So all we can do is, put it in the right perspective, put it in writing, adequately inform the client. Ultimately, as far as the home inspector is concerned, what they do with that information is entirely up to them.
Right.
So, and that's all we can do. We don't want to be too alarming. We don't want to downplay things. And if I can go back to one other thing that you said, how do you do that balancing? I'll tell you a little story. Back in 1994, I was working in an auto insurance company as a sales manager, and my boss was buying a home inspection franchise from a group of people in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he says, I think you'd be a great home inspector. I said, well, sure. Yeah, what's a home inspector?
Right.
So he says, okay, so while the president of the company, he's coming out, to kind of scope out the city with us and give me an idea as to what they think we can do with the franchise here. He says, let's get together. We'll have lunch with him, next Thursday or whatever it was. So we're sitting there at the table, and I'm not going to mention the guy's name because he's still in the industry and he's a competitor now. So I don't want to mention him and give him any credit. But anyway, we're sitting there at the table, and I'm a young 26-year-old kid, so I asked what I thought was a smart question. And to this day, I still think it's a smart question, but my boss was cringing, because he's like, oh, you always ask the negative stuff, man. You're always focused on the negative. I said, what's the hardest thing about being a home inspector? What's the most difficult aspect of being a home inspector? And he gave me one word: balance.
Oh, okay.
And I said, okay, what balance? He says, you have to have a good, solid working relationship with the real estate agents, but you're representing the client. Mm-hmm. And that relationship with the real estate agent goes out the window when you're in front of the client. Okay. But if you're too alarming, you lose the relationship with the agent. If you downplay it, then the client ends up with a problem and they sue you down the road.
Right.
He says maintaining that balance is the most difficult part of being a home inspector. And that's what, has stuck with me my whole career. And every home inspector struggles with it, because you look at it and you go, oh boy, I'm going to have to recommend a structural engineer on this one. And those guys cost $1,500 an hour.
Yeah.
But I have no choice. The roof could cave in, because there's 18 broken trusses up there in the attic. You have to put it in the report. So what I tell agents when I'm marketing, what I tell students when I'm teaching, if the deal busts up, that's okay, as long as it was the condition of the property and not the way you communicated your findings.
Yeah, so I would agree. That is the hardest part for me as a realtor, to interpret the home inspection report. Mm-hmm. If we haven't had any interaction, feedback from the inspector themselves. Right. Like I said, I've had a few where they're just like, okay, I've done my report, you'll get it in 2 days. Right. And they bounce. Yeah. And then my clients are like, well, did we? And I'm like, I don't know. Sorry. When we get the report, I'll go over it. If we have questions, I'll call them. Yeah. I'll do my best. Yeah. It's
got to be an uncomfortable moment for you. Forgive the interruption, but that's got to be really uncomfortable to be kind of stuck in the middle there.
It's completely uncomfortable because the balance is the problem. Right. I'm not a home inspector. Right. I have my opinion. I have some experience with reading home inspections, sitting through them, following them around, but that doesn't make me an expert by any stretch of the imagination. Mm-hmm. Home inspections are actually not in my definition of my license, right? Yeah. So if I go into a house and I start telling a prospective buyer, that, I think this is wrong and that's wrong, I'm way outside of my bounds, because I'm not a home inspector. Right. I sell the home. I manage the transaction side of it. Right. And like a bartender, without the joy of the alcohol, I'm also a therapist. Yeah. And a counselor, and sometimes an Uber driver. Yeah. Yeah. So the clients sometimes expect us to wear a bunch of hats.
Sure they do. Yeah.
And the one that scares me the most is making the wrong recommendation on a piece of property that is probably the most expensive thing they're ever going to buy. Right. For the average American, right? We're probably not going to all buy luxury yachts. So if this is the most expensive thing you're buying and you've entrusted me, thank you. And I always do my best. but it is a little nerve-wracking to, recommend things that I don't do for every day.
Right.
I find that if the home inspector talks to the clients directly, I have a easier time. And it's not because I want my job to be easy, but my clients were able to ask questions to the home inspector directly.
Right.
And then how they interpret their own work is going to be better than me. Right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like you instruct your students to do that. Is that right?
Yeah, and I do it on every inspection.
Right.
Because what I do to overcome that, because I know how difficult it is for the agent, because if home inspectors are left-brained, most agents are right-brained. You guys are more in tune, a lot less in tune with the details, more in tune with the emotions and the process and the flow and keeping all the plates spinning on the sticks.
Oh, 100%.
And what we do is, we delve into the details. So we're polar opposites, but it's funny how we always have to work together that way. So what I always tell the agents and what I tell the clients, even in the email that goes out, says, here's your appointment confirmation. We encourage them to be there, even if they can only be there for the last 30 minutes to get the review.
Right.
And what we do on every single home inspection is I open up the report, because we do an on-site report. Our report's 95% done, minus the spelling errors that I have to correct, So I get a final copy of the report when I'm done with the inspection. We're all on site together. I open it up. It's a PDF file, and I go through it page by page. And I don't just say, okay, now that's wrong, and that's wrong, and that's wrong, and that's about to fall apart, and boy, that's going to cost you a few bucks over here. I go through the house and I say, okay, or I go through the report and I say, okay, here's what we did on the site and the exterior and the grounds. We're looking at everything from the foundation out, the foundation up on the outside of the house. We look for this, and this. Here's a couple of things I found that you want to be aware of. And I'll show them the pictures. And I'll just walk them through that whole process. And then at the end, I'll summarize it for them. Here's your summary page. We kind of just gave you a little bullet point here to list to jog the memory. And through that process, as we go through each page, before I go to the next page, any questions about the grounds page, any questions about the roof? Okay, let's continue on. And I review the report with them like that. And I put things as I go in the right perspective. This is a maintenance thing. This is a significant issue. This is satisfactory. This is marginal. This is poor.
Yeah.
And when you can do that, you can get all of their questions answered up front. The agent doesn't have to call the home inspector nearly as much.
Right.
And doing that for the last 30 years, I know for a fact I get fewer phone calls after the home inspection than most home inspectors out there. And it's all because I took the 15 minutes to review the report with them.
Yeah, it really doesn't take long.
It doesn't.
In my experience, my buyers have been overwhelmingly in favor of talking to the home inspector on site.
Yeah.
I've never had a buyer not be at a home inspection.
And that's a great practice.
I think it is. Then, on top of it, the buyer pays for it.
Right.
They own the report. I don't own the report. The seller doesn't own the report. It belongs to the buyer.
Right.
So, when you're paying something and it's not like home inspections are expensive, but it's all relative. I don't think they're super cheap either. Like, it's like if you buy a used car, before you buy it, you take it to a mechanic, right? They're going to have a charge of some sort, maybe $150 or maybe a couple $100
fee.
Yeah, they're going to say, well, I'll plug your car in and see what it tells me.
Right.
And yet I've had people want to skip inspections on buying a house, which I always advocate for the inspection to take place.
Right.
I know it's an extra like X amount of dollars, but would you rather? I don't think it's worth the risk. What would the average home inspection cost for someone to hire your company?
Our average fee is about $500 for the inspection. But when you do the additional services that we do, we're somewhere around $680, $690 for average, because we do the well inspections, we do the sewer scopes, we do the radon testing. So when you add all those extra services, we're averaging just under $700 per inspection right now.
And that's a good thing to bring up too, because oddly enough, I have to figure out what home inspectors offer.
Yeah.
Because like Clark County has a decent amount of radon, which if people don't know, I've talked about radon before, but essentially it's an odorless, tasteless, invisible gas that comes out of the ground. And if you have any barrier issues or cracks in your foundation, then that gas can be seeping into your lungs while you're walking around your house. And I think, if I'm not misspeaking, they link radon to certain types of cancers.
Lung cancer.
Lung cancer, okay.
Dramatically increases lung cancer possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I actually
certain
recommend an inspection for radon on every house.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to go through that whole thing because nobody apparently knows what radon is either.
Yeah.
And so I had one done on the house I personally bought.
Uh-huh.
So when I recommend it to people, I'm not just trying to make you spend more money.
Yeah.
I did it for my own house, so take it as you will.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing to know too, because there's home inspectors that don't have any additional certifications.
That's correct.
And then there's home inspectors like yourself, and you have multiple, I mean, what other services are out there, and how do you, like, are they certifications as well? Like, explain that.
That's a good question. You know, it depends on what you define as certification. You know, for, you know, like we have a lot of continuing ed classes that we offer our students and home inspectors in multiple states. And, you know, I can say, you take this class, you're certified. But what does that really mean?
Sure.
You know, so, you know, before you say certification or I'm certified, okay, what does that mean? You know, you got to delve into it and find out, you know, did they just take an online class and that's it? So I don't like to say certification level courses, although I'm finding out really fast that a lot of home inspectors won't take a course unless it's a certification level course. But but the whole thing is like, okay, what did you learn? How can you apply it? And how does this help the client? Okay. So, yeah, I do carry certain designations. I have gotten certifications. I have gotten licenses in the past that I don't use anymore because nobody cares. Because no agent has ever asked me, are you certified for this? Are you certified for that by some national organization? They're like, okay, how much do you cost? How well do you communicate to the client? You know, how long have you been in business? Those are the 3 most common questions I get.
Okay.
So I do have a certified master inspector designation, you know, which is something I'm very proud of. It's a national designation, certified master inspector. And if you were to go to my profile on InterNACHI's website and see all the classes I've taken, they've got dozens of little badges, you know, on there that say I've taken this class and I'm certified to do this or that. What I like to tell people is I'm just a really good home inspector. Okay. You know, and I'm going to find what it is that we need to find today. As long as it's visible and accessible and within the scope of the standards of practice, you're going to get a wealth of information. But the services we offer, we do the radon testing, which I held that designation, that certification, but nobody seems to care that I'm certified. So I do the continuing education. I just don't pay the $400 a year to keep the certification. Okay. I still do the continuing education. I still keep myself up to date just as though I were certified. But the most important thing that people want to know is how long have you been doing it? You know, how well do you do it? How much do you know, et cetera, et cetera. You know, but there's lots of designations. You know, like here in Washington, you can get a structural pest inspector's license and do the termite inspections. Oh, okay. Which we have offered, you know, for the last several years. You can do well testing. You know, here in Clark County, you know, there's a lot of rural areas, a lot of wells. It's a great service to offer. We're certified in that. You know, I've taken the class, you know, and been to the movie, bought the ticket, I guess you could say. Sure. Let's see, what else have we got? Certified commercial property inspector through a national association. We carry that designation. We do commercial property inspections. Most people are not going to be overly impressed with a lot of certifications and badges on a guy's website, but some people are. What would be required, though? For example, like some companies that are locally around here, they don't do well inspections, which basically is not really an inspection of the well. It's, if I'm not mistaken, a well inspection is quite simply just a flow test, right? Oh, there's more to it than that. Yeah. Well, so is there a certification for that? Like, can you offer a well inspection if you're not certified in it, or what? Like, what are? Okay. I mean, why are some of the certifications important and others not? I guess. Okay. Well, see, that's what I was getting at with the whole certification thing. Are you really certified, or did you take a class? Do you have the knowledge, or don't you? Okay. So, for example, I've got a badge on my InterNACHI profile that says I'm certified well inspector because I took the class. There's a lot more to it than just doing a flow test. You know, a good home inspector always makes it look easy, right? Because you have to understand the relationship between the pump and the pressure tank and the pressure switch and the flow rate. And you got to understand what's a good flow rate for a house based on square footage, number of bedrooms and bathrooms, et cetera, et cetera. And then as you're sitting there, you know, seemingly doing nothing but watching water come out the end of a hose, you're putting, again, like we talked about earlier, all of these multiple clues together. Right, you know? Right. So I'm seeing the pump kick on at this pressure and this flow rate, the pump shuts off at this pressure and this flow rate, and it's cycling this way, it's cycled this many times, my average flow rate is this. And that helps us understand and be able to communicate to the client whether the well is working correctly. So, yeah, you should take a class if you want to do well inspections. There's a lot to it. You know? No, there is. And you are right. It seemingly looks like all you're doing is watching water flow out of a hose for 2 hours. Right.
And am I right with that? Is it a 2-hour test?
2 hours, yeah.
So for 2 hours, you're running water through the well, basically.
Exactly.
And so you're looking for what? Drops in pressure, increase in pressure, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
ever have a well shut off on you?
A couple of times. I've had a couple of them run out of water 45 minutes into the test, and you just got a little bit of brown silty stuff coming out the end of the hose. Well, I better write that down.
Well, what happens if that happens and you can't continue your 2-hour test? I mean, does it fail?
I don't. Yeah.
What do you do with that?
That's a good question. I don't like to say pass or fail on anything.
Okay.
Because it's another thing I teach my students. There are no absolutes. Well, there's one absolute. And that is there are no absolutes, and that's also a paradox. But I guess that's a conversation for another day. Pass or fail. No, I say that we ran out of water.
Okay.
And you need to get this looked at, and you might want to do a more a long-term test to see and see how long it takes that well to recharge. Because sometimes the water source that they're getting to underground is being fed from an underground stream, and you're pulling it out faster than the stream is feeding the reservoir.
Sure.
Okay.
Or the equipment fails, or
the equipment could fail.
Yeah.
So that's when we do what your general physician would do. I'm not going to lay you down on the table and cut you open. I'm going to refer you to a well specialist.
Right.
See? And that's what we do. It ran out of water, and of course, and that's why we do the well test after the home inspection.
It's that way because I think in reality, I don't know how many households that will run their water for 2 hours every day.
That's right. Yeah.
Straight. I mean, maybe 2 hours a day over 15 minutes here, 10 minutes there, whatever. Mm-hmm. Or unless you have a teenager like I used to have that would take like an hour and a half long shower.
Yeah.
But when you're on a well, that's probably not a great idea. But yeah, so they do take 2 hours. Mm-hmm. You have to consistently watch and monitor.
Right.
So you don't have the ability to I'll go do a home inspection, 15 minutes, come back and check in. Mm-hmm. You actually have to be there the whole time. So, you might have a couple hours for the home inspection, and then you got another 2 hours straight that you have to sit there and stare at a hose, basically.
Yeah.
I've sat through those.
Yeah.
Snooze fest, no offense.
That's okay.
You can do a well inspection without anybody being there most of the time because it's outside the property. You don't go in the house. And
sometimes the well equipment's down in the basement.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In the basement.
Yeah.
I have yet to come across that one.
Yeah, it's sometimes down in the basement, and you got to run the hose out the sliding glass door of the backyard and all that stuff. So sometimes we do need access, So it's always a question that I ask, Yeah. But also I also want to touch on something that you said. You do the home inspection first, and then you do the well inspection, and you can't do the two together. There's a really good reason for that, and that's because I need to be able to test all the plumbing fixtures in the house. And one thing a good home inspector does is he fills up every sink and drains it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Flushes every toilet twice, puts 4 or 5 inches of water in the bathtub. So I need enough water, to do all that. And we need the pressure and the flow to be able to test the fixtures under normal conditions.
Right.
But that also is, when I told you that one well ran out of water in 45 minutes, well, I was already done with the home inspection, and it was a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house.
Okay.
So I had filled up a couple of bathtubs with 4 or 5 inches of water, filled up multiple sinks, flushed every toilet twice, used a lot of water, and then went and did the well thing. And it's kind of a misconception that you wouldn't run the water for 2 hours. Believe it or not, there's a lot of overlap. I mean, think about it. You got a family of 6. Okay? You got 4 kids, mom and dad, right? Mm-hmm. It's a weekend. Dad's watering the grass, teenager's washing his car, mom's doing dishes and washing clothes, and the dishwasher's going.
Gosh,
and all of that kind of leapfrogs over the course of a 3 or 4 hour period.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's why we do a 2-hour minimum flow test, because it simulates peak consumption.
Ah.
See?
All right. See, this is why you get a home inspector, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Well, that's what we're here for, right? Yeah.
But no, that's actually good, because look, I get the question all the time. Mm-hmm. My clients will often, when we're buying an acreage property,
right.
A lot of them have wells.
Mm-hmm.
I get that a lot. The people are like, why is it 2 hours? I'm like, I don't know, because it is. Like that, But no, now I'm going to tell people, well, it simulates the peak consumption of your 4 to 6 member family.
Right.
And if the water can't run at an accepted level of gallons per minute for the 2 hours, then you have some issue with the well, right? It could be the equipment, it could be the water source itself. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of depths that are different. Like my well personally is 52 feet deep.
That's pretty good.
I think it's really shallow. right?
Yeah, it is. The average well depth here in Washington State is about 235 feet.
Yeah, and I've even had some that were more than that.
Yeah.
Right? So, when you're talking about cost of getting to the water, it's every like X amount of feet costs you a certain amount of money, right?
Last time I looked, it was $12 a foot to drill a well, and that was about 6 years ago.
Yeah, so it can be costly, right? There's also a lot of differences because you've got to know if it's a shared well or if it's a private well.
Right.
Shared wells have different standards as far as I'm aware. And so there's a lot to just something as simple sounding as a well.
Right, right. It is.
And that's why I'm actually harping on this well thing a little bit, is because I want people to understand it's not just some dude watching the paint dry.
Yeah.
It's a lot more to it to make sure that it's all working well.
Right.
Right? No pun intended. Working
I like
well.
it, though. That's good.
I think that every buyer should have a home inspection.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to skip it, I say to you, good luck and not smart. I recommend them. I don't make money on them. It's not my deal. It's for you, the buyer. Get the home inspection. And I know it can be painful because sometimes it's $500 a house and then the inspection's like, no thanks, or the deal falls out.
Yeah.
And now we're on to a next house and you're like, really? I spent another $500. Listen, at the end of the day, even if you had 2 or 3 home inspections done, you find the house, at least the money was well spent.
Right.
Because honestly, I mean, there are things that if you don't catch them are real big doozies.
Yeah.
Structural things for me are the most important, personally.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, you can tell me I could tell you if the roof looks old, right? You look up, you're like, it looks old.
Yeah.
You might need a replacement soon, right? Yeah. But foundations, also the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, correct me if I misspeak, but I've seen home inspectors talk about the grade of the property, that the water looks like it sits up against the foundation, for example.
Right.
And that is something you guys are also trained to look for.
Exactly.
Not just the house, but you look for, like, what kind of things do you look for that would be an issue outside of the home?
There's a lot of things, and if we're going to talk about the grading, that's a big one, because and when I tell my students, same thing, if it's flat up against the house, that's negative grade. If it slopes towards the house, that's negative grade. Both are bad situation. Negative grade is the easy one to figure out, because if you got water ponding up against the foundation, you can get seepage. But when you got, especially here in the Northwest, with the kind of soil conditions and the rain volume. It rains
a little.
Yeah. It's weird. I have a student right now in a class, he's from Tennessee, and they get about 60 inches of rain a year in Nashville, which is 20 more than we get here.
Oh, what?
Yeah, but the difference is, for us, we have more days of a long, steady, light soaker.
Okay.
And that's what makes it feel like we get more rain. And
I see.
When your grade is level, that water absorbs into the soil, and it creates high pressure in the soil. And that can actually, and I've seen this many times, where I'll go in a crawl space, it's been raining for 3 or 4 days. Like we had that recent rain, we had more than we usually get in a 2-week period.
Oh, yeah.
Go underneath the house, you got level grade outside. I go into the crawl space and there's water percolating up out of the soil, because the pressure in the outside soil is kind of pushing it under, and getting up into the crawl space. And that's a seasonal thing, but that's something that a client should be made aware of, because if that's going to happen once every few years when we get those heavy rains, then you're going to want to put in a sump pump or something like that.
Yeah.
So grading is a huge thing, because that soft dirt underneath your footings can also cause it to sink.
Yeah.
And in really cold climates where the ground freezes, that can expand and push up on the foundation. So we look at the foundation, we look at the grading, we look at landscaping that could be affecting the house. Trees and shrubs right up against the house, they trap moisture, it's a highway for bugs, that sort of thing. If we go from foundation up, we're looking at siding, trim, doors, windows. We're looking at the eaves. We're looking for proper soffit vents, to vent the roof, et cetera, et cetera. The outside of the house is the longest part of the inspection.
Really?
Yeah, I spend about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the size of the house, just outside.
Wow.
Because even when you're done with everything from the grading to the foundation to the siding and the trim and the windows and the eaves, well, now you got to go and do the heat pump or the air conditioner, and you still have to inspect the garage. There's a lot of things to look at on the outside of a house. And that's why we always start on the outside. I always start on the outside, because that tells me what to look for inside. And it's that whole assembling the clues things that we've been talking about.
Yeah. When I first started attending home inspections, I thought it was weird that the inspectors would, my experience, they go into the kitchen and they immediately turn on the dishwasher.
Yes.
I just thought it was weird. Look, I don't know why. I just thought it was weird. I'm like, you're here to inspect the house, and these guys, would show up and they'd be walking around outside.
Yeah.
And then I show up because, I'm on time. Y'all are usually early.
Oh yeah. Notoriously
and then,
so.
Yeah, like 10 or 15 minutes even, and you're just kind of getting a jump on the outside of the house, right? So it makes sense. You do the outside first. You can actually start before we arrive.
Right.
And then at this, but with that being said, these guys go in the house. I swear they just go straight to the kitchen. Boop, boop, boop. They turn on the dishwasher. Yeah. And for the longest time, I never asked. And then one day I just asked them, I'm like, why do you guys run the dishwasher?
Yeah.
They're like, well, because the homeowners are going to run the dishwasher.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we are looking for excess moisture.
Uh-huh.
Now, what I thought was weird, and I mean, okay, this is probably boring, right? I don't know. But I think it's weird because apparently there's an acceptable level of moisture for when you have a dishwasher, and then there's not.
I don't know. It depends on what moisture you're talking about, where and when.
So, for me, they turn on the dishwasher, they go do stuff.
Yeah.
The dishwasher's done, and they usually try to come back right away. Mm-hmm. They don't wait 30 minutes after it's done.
Right.
They kind of time it. They look at the thing, and then they come back.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some, most have some kind of reader, like a little gun thing, and they're looking for moisture. I'm assuming leakage.
Oh, okay.
What are you looking for, and why are you doing that? Like, I'm just saying.
Well, if the dishwasher is leaking, if it's been leaking for any length of time, you can look down at the floor, you can look at the cabinet, and you can usually find moisture damage.
Sure.
So I'm not quite sure what a home inspector would be doing with an infrared thermometer to check for moisture after the dishwasher's been running. But I can tell you why I run a dishwasher. I see it happen. Yeah.
And I don't know what they're looking for either.
They might be looking for the temperature of the water to make sure the heating element works in the bottom of the dishwasher, right?
Okay.
But there's a reason, I can explain the whole thing about why as soon as we get in the house, we turn on the dishwasher.
Please.
And I've got kind of a funny story. It wasn't funny when it happened, but it's funny now.
Well, it's funny now.
Yeah, this is about 30 years ago. And a home inspector told me, I was frustrated, okay, because so many people don't realize the dishwasher runs for about 2.5 hours.
Right.
So by the time we get inside the house, we've already been outside for an hour. We're only going to be in the house for another hour and a half.
Right.
Okay. So what I do is I run on a short wash or a rinse only cycle, because the idea is to get it to fill, agitate, and drain at least one time and simulate a cycle.
Okay.
Because the last thing I want to do is turn that thing on and leave the house and it's vacant and everybody's gone and then it starts to leak.
Oh yeah, that'd be bad.
Yeah. So I was frustrated with that 2.5 hour process because I was running it on a full wash when I was first getting started. And the home inspector said, "Oh, see, now Arizona was a different market back then.
Okay.
A lot of times they give me the CBS code of the lockbox and say, "Let yourself in. We'll be there for the last half hour." And we both know that doesn't fly up here in the Northwest.
I so happily sit at every single one of them.
Yeah. So, but back then I would get the CBS code, and they say, let yourself in. So another home inspector, I think it was in an ASHI conference or something, he says, well, what you do is if you got the CBS code, before you start anything, go in the house, run the dishwasher. You're going to be at the house for 2.5 hours. This should finish up before you're done. And I thought, oh, wow, that's brilliant. Until a couple weeks later, I let myself in, turned on the dishwasher, went outside for 45 minutes to an hour, came back into a flooded kitchen because the dishwasher was leaking. So that's why when I go in, first thing I do is find the dishwasher, turn it on, run it on a short wash that'll only take an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and it'll be done before I leave, and I'm not leaving a house with a dishwasher running.
And if you're an agent like myself who actually attends the home inspections, you'll be able to turn it off before it floods the kitchen.
Yeah.
No, seriously. And also, I will tell you, great tip that I got from a home inspector on that is never run your dishwasher when you're leaving the house.
Right.
Never run it when you go to bed. Basically, run the dishwasher when somebody's there to find out if your kitchen became a swimming pool.
Exactly.
Because I've had friends do this, go to church, run the dishwasher, come home,
flooded house.
30 grand worth of damage from a $600 dishwasher.
Yeah.
So water is our enemy.
It is.
And we live in water basically in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
So
it's ironic, isn't it? It's the most important life-giving force on the planet, but it's also the most destructive element.
To our shelter.
Yeah.
No, it really is. So as interesting as home inspections are, but they're important.
They are.
And I think that every buyer should have a home inspection done. I think it's probably wise for real estate agents to at least sit through some courses. Not because we're going to tell you about your home, but we're going to just expand our knowledge of what it is that you guys are looking for.
Right.
And also, it will help us learn how you guys operate the language, the lingo. That way, when we do have to interpret for our clients, which is a lot, we'll be better suited to do so.
Right.
So, with that said, if you're looking for a school to be a home inspector, there will be links to that. And if you're a buyer or an agent and you want good home inspectors, then please check out Derek's YouTube and school and
High-tech home inspections and training. Yes,
sir. Give them a call. And with that, I appreciate you coming on. And
my pleasure.
And hopefully we'll be calling you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks,
I've enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun.